Welcome back to the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Awareness course. This is part 2. Remember, to get the most out of this training course, please break it up. Also participate in the activities. Take notes, repeat if you don't understand, and do contact me if there's anything you're unsure about. So that by the end of this session, you should be able to understand the impact of hearing loss on daily life in terms of the outcomes. You'll be aware of the variety of technological solutions available and have an awareness of deaf blindness. You'll also know more about the specialist services in adult social care in East Sussex. So in part 1, we looked at how hearing loss and deafness affects communication and access to information. In part 2, we will investigate how hearing loss impacts on a person's day-to-day activities. However, although in practice you will refer to the sensory team for an assessment and reablement, it's still useful for you to be aware of and be able to identify these needs to enable a clear reason for your referral. So, knowing what you know about the difficulties deaf people have with the communication and access to information within the hearing world, how do you think these issues may impact on the daily activities listed here? So, shopping for food and preparing and cooking food. Shopping for toiletries, clothes and other essential items. Maintaining a safe, secure and habitable home environment. Developing and keeping in touch with family and friends. Accessing and engaging in work, training, education or volunteering. Participating in the local community and carrying out any caring responsibilities for a loved one or a child. So pause the video now and jot down some ideas that you can think of, as this will help you complete the case studies that follow. Okay, so this is where we bring together all 5 areas for investigation. The first case study refers to Pauline, a profoundly deaf mother of 2 children. Once you've read the case study, consider what challenges Pauline would experience in relation to communicating with others, access to information, ability to undertake activities of daily living independently and safely, participating in work, education and leisure, and an impact on her mental health and well-being. Please pause the presentation now and complete the activity in resource 6 and join me on the next slide. From the case study, you may have identified that Pauline would have many challenges. With regards to communication with others, this is being able to express herself and needs and to be understood by others. This also pertains to Pauline's ability to understand what others are saying to her. And within face-to-face situations, she may not come into contact with many people who use BSL. Although she'll be able to lip read, she may misunderstand a lot of things. As we know, lip reading is very difficult to do and only has a 35% accuracy rate. Pauline would be unable to use the standard telephone to get in touch with her family and friends. She also may find it difficult to participate in any antenatal or new mother groups or play groups or access support as a new mother. As again, it's highly unlikely that there are many mothers that can do BSL, so she may not feel included and feel ostracised. Communicating with her 2-year-old. Her daughter is probably bilingual at this point, having used sign language from an early age. Her daughter, however, may want her to read stories to her, but Pauline will be unable to. Also, how would she summon help if she can't use the telephone? How would she access help? Access to information. So how would she know that somebody was at the door, or that her baby was crying, or that her daughter needed some attention? Smoke and fire alarms, especially at night time, as her husband is at work. Also, how would Pauline access news on the radio and television, particularly if there's no subtitles or captions or a live signer? In fact, there's a campaign going on at the moment with regards to there being no sign language interpreter during the COVID-19 updates delivered by the Prime Minister. And this has left a lot of deaf people not knowing what the new rules are from day to day. Daily living tasks. Pauline may have difficulty reading written information. This may include letters, bills and cooking instructions due to having a reading age of 9. Directions. How would she ask for directions and understand the response? Shopping. Would she be able to ask for items that she cannot see or pick up herself, such as stamps and behind-the-counter medications? With regards to work, she may find difficulty completing an application form, engaging with an interview and conversing with work colleagues. Also, how would she participate in team meetings? So how do you think all this would impact on her health and well-being? Well, she'll probably feel very lonely and socially isolated. She may become depressed and anxious about going out. Will she be able to access health services, such as the GP or health visitor? She may have an increased risk for postnatal depression. And there may be an impact on her child, as she could potentially have language delay if she's not communicating with anybody that's hearing, particularly as the father is asleep during the day. The next case study relates to a lady named Irene. Now, Irene has age-acquired hearing loss. So again, if you look at resource 6 and have a look at the challenges that Irene may experience, and in relation to communication with others, access to information, and again, her ability to undertake her daily activities, participation in leisure activities, and the possible impact on her health and well-being. So if you pause the video now, complete the activity and join me on the next slide. Some of the challenges you may have identified are as follows. Communicating with others, particularly face-to-face, due to not wearing her hearing aids. Using a standard telephone, being able to use Skype or FaceTime effectively. And with regards to accessing information, she may not be able to hear environmental sounds such as the smoke alarm at night time, or hearing the doorbell, or hearing the news on the radio or TV. And in relation to activities of daily living, she may have difficulties when shopping, for example, hearing where items are placed or hearing how much the cost of an item is at the till. She also may miss essential deliveries like food and medication due to not hearing the doorbell. And with regards to participation in leisure activities, you may find that she starts to withdraw from going to the club due to not being able to hear people and being able to be included. She'll be unable to watch her favourite TV programmes if no subtitles have been provided, or hear her favourite radio shows. She may also miss visitors due to not hearing the doorbell, thereby increasing her feeling of isolation. The impact on her health and well-being. She's at risk of harm if she's unable to hear the smoke alarm. She may become more lonely because she's not participating and socially isolated. She also may experience depression and anxiety. And also finally, the increased risk of dementia. And this may be due to being isolated and lonely and not communicating with others. Now we're going to look at some of the technological solutions that can support a person to communicate, access information and complete their daily activities safely and independently. These solutions will normally be prescribed by the sensory team or can be purchased by the person themselves. common type of technology for hearing loss are hearing aids, and there are basically three types. There are the ones that are worn on the ear, and these increase the level of sound entering the ear. They amplify all sounds within the environment, and they're not like natural hearing. Not all older people can wear them, so it's good to identify early what the issues are. And they are very small and can be tricky to adjust and keep clean. However, technology is improving and changing all the time, so always try to keep updated with the new technologies. A second one is cochlear implants, and this requires an operation. A lot of parents that are giving birth to children born deaf are choosing cochlear implants as a way forward, and this is where a microphone is attached to the skull. And finally, there are loop systems, and these are used in conjunction with a hearing aid. But the hearing aid needs to have a T-switch for it to be activated. And this is the symbol to show that a hearing loop is installed. If you'd like to find out more information about how hearing loops work, then please don't go to Resource 7, slide 15 for more information. I'm just going to talk a little more about ear-worn hearing aids because I think it's very important. Firstly, hearing aids do not work for everybody. However, if somebody has been prescribed hearing aids but they're refusing to wear them, try and investigate why. They may not have been told that it does take a little while to get used to the hearing aids, 2 to 4 weeks, so it may just be that they need to persist. For hearing aids to be useful, they need to be maintained properly. So please follow these 3 C's. Make sure they're cleaned on a regular basis, that the battery's changed or charged, and that they've been inserted correctly. Studies have shown that only 1 in 3 people who could potentially benefit from a hearing aid uses one. So make sure somebody has a hearing test annually, as it's very important for dementia prevention for somebody to use hearing aids and access communication. And finally, also remember that the person's ears also need to be free of wax for hearing aids to work. There are a variety of assistive technologies these days that have improved the lives of people who are deaf and hard of hearing. These technologies are designed to improve communication and access to information. And as a lot of day-to-day activities rely on both these qualities, they've also enabled people who are deaf and hard of hearing to become more independent. In turn, this has impacted on their mental health. There are various technologies that can improve communication with others. So one of these are amplified telephones. These simply amplify the sounds, that is, make it louder so the person on the phone can hear the voice. Video conferencing. Applications such as Skype and Teams. Although these technologies were created for the general population, this has been life-changing for the deaf community, who were previously unable to use sign language with their friends and family without being face-to-face. Now they have the same access as hearing people. Smartphone applications. Since the advent of the smartphone, there's been a surge in applications being created to facilitate communication between users. Recently, applications have been created specifically for the deaf or hard of hearing users. 2 of mention are the Chatable app and Sign Live. Now, the Chatable application allows you to hear conversation clearly by reducing background noise and amplifying the voice. Sign Live is a BSL interpreting 24-hour day service, and this can be paid for by direct payments. There's also personal listeners, and these are very good because they increase the volume and clarity of conversations, and these are good to use when completing face-to-face assessments. Alerting systems. These are systems that inform the person with what's going on in the environment, and they normally work in 3 ways: by either amplifying sound, flashing lights, or via a vibration. Now the following products work in these ways. So you have fire alarms or smoke alarms, and these normally are activated by a flashing ceiling light. There's also burglar alarms and alarms to wake you up. And this normally works with a vibrating pad that's placed under the pillow. This can also be connected to the fire alarm and burglar alarm. Systems to inform you when somebody's at the door. Again, this can be a flashing light or vibration. And when the baby cries, or when the phone rings or the fax machine. But as you can imagine, this would all get very confusing with the lights flashing and not knowing whether it's the door or the phone or the baby crying. So there are what's known as multi-alerting systems, which a common one is the Bellman, and this has flashing lights and a vibrating pad for night time. And if you can see, if you look at this diagram here, you can see that would tell you that the baby was crying. That one would tell you that the door's ringing, phone's ringing, and whether the smoke or fire alarm's gone off. And this can all be connected to the vibrating pad here that's placed under the pillow. Listening devices. One of the most common are wireless personal listeners for use with the TV, music or radio. The base of the unit, which is here, is normally connected to the TV or radio, and a wireless signal is sent to the headphones here, which are placed in the ears. There's a video in resource 7, slide 19, if you'd like further information about this. We've already talked about loop systems, and we've also mentioned the smartphone apps. There's also visual displays, text or sign language. So these you'll see at train stations, on trains themselves and buses. With regards to the news, there should be closed captions or subtitles provided. Also on YouTube videos, these can be accessed by clicking on the bottom left icon. If you look at resource 7, slide 19, there is some information about how to find captions on YouTube. Also, although not technology, live signers on the BBC are provided. However, this hasn't been consistent during the COVID-19 epidemic, and the deaf community has started legal proceedings against the government over a lack of sign language interpreters at its daily coronavirus briefings, as they believe that they haven't had equal access to information as their hearing counterparts. Finally, I've included 2 videos that demonstrate the impact that technology has on people who are hard of hearing. The first is about the role of technology at work, and the second is about technology within daily life and leisure. Please pause the video now, and I'll see you in the next slide. Deaf blindness or dual sensory loss. Under the Care Act 2014, people are regarded as deaf-blind if their combined hearing and sight loss causes problems with communication, access to information and mobility. So what is deaf-blindness? Well, it isn't deafness plus blindness or vice versa, but it's deafness multiplied by blindness, or blindness multiplied by deafness. And it isn't the level of sight and hearing loss. However, what it is the combination which creates the socially significant impact. Many people tend to have some residual vision and hearing intact. And it's unique with different challenges for each person and those around them. It's most likely to affect the older population, so most deaf blindness is acquired through age. Congenital deaf blindness describes people born both deaf and blind or developed it early in childhood. A person with age-acquired deaf blindness is unlikely to describe themselves as deaf-blind. So how does deaf blindness impact on a person? Well, as the Care Act definition stated, it affects someone's mobility, access to information and communication. And this can be remembered by using this acronym MAC. So it impacts on someone's mobility, as they're no longer going to be able to move around in unfamiliar places as easy, or familiar places that have been changed. They're also going to have access to information difficulties, as they're not going to be able to use their sight to read books or to hear when listening to the television. And also the communication is going to be impacted. So they'll find it hard to hear voices, read lips, and also for people who are deaf and they're losing their sight, they're not going to be able to use their native language of sign language. Now, in order to assess somebody who is deaf-blind, they need to have a specialist assessment. And people who are qualified will normally receive training that's at least QCF or OCN level 3, which is specifically for age-related deaf-blindness. Training and expertise normally includes communication, one-to-one human contact, social interaction and emotional well-being, as well as support with mobility, assistive technology and rehabilitation. And also the recognition that deaf-blindness requires knowledge and understanding of the two respective conditions in unison. There is an identification tool that can be used, and you'll find this in Resource 7, slide 24. The East Sussex County Council, Sensory Team and Local Services. So what does the sensory team do for people with hearing loss? Well, they provide information and signposting, and they also provide equipment. They also have a duty to register people who are severely sight and hearing impaired, those that are deaf-blind. They also carry out a specialist assessment. Every member of the team is qualified to level 3. And they also provide reablement and rehabilitation. They also provide a limited care management function for adults whose primary need is sensory. The sensory team works in partnership with the East Sussex Resource Centre based in Eastbourne. And they are the contracted provider of hearing equipment for the sensory team under the prescription system. They also provide resources and advice in Eastbourne. They also provide hearing aid batteries and can complete a hearing screening test. They also have a deaf outreach service, which is run with the sensory team. And they also have groups and classes for people with hearing and dual sensory impairments, for example, lip reading classes, British Sign Language classes, and deaf-blind groups. The Sussex Deaf Association, they recently merged with Action for Hearing Loss in 2018, and they are an advocacy service and community support service. They have drop-in advice sessions for people who are deaf that have got debt or housing issues, and they also have communication support workers. They have deaf clubs or pub meets organised. And they also run British Sign Language classes. They also deliver deaf awareness courses for the whole of East Sussex, and they undertake research and also campaigning for British Sign Language and for deaf rights. Well, you now come to the end of the course, so thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd also like to thank Julie Southgate, Kim Bryant and Grace Gellertree, who work for the sensory team, for their input during the development of this course. Thank you very much. Just a final note on returning workbooks. Please return your completed workbook by 5 p.m. on Friday and complete it electronically if you can and send to joe.virgo@eastsussex.gov.uk. And once again, thank you very much for joining me on this course, and I hope you've enjoyed it.